and welcome to the Riyal Deal, coming to you from the Arabiya English headquarters. This is your weekly bulletin, bringing you all the latest business news headlines and analysis from Saudi Arabia. Coming up on today's programme, we're going to be taking an in-depth look at the potential of a thriving Saudi real estate sector backed by policy reform and how it's driving a transformation in housing needs right across the kingdom. We'll be hearing from the Saudi housing minister and also catching up with the CEO of an international real estate firm with roots in Saudi Arabia. Plus, the Riyadh Metro, which only began operations a few months ago, is doing more than just connecting destinations. We'll be finding out how it's impacting the lives of the citizens of Riyadh. Hello and a very warm welcome. Let's kick off with our main story, which is, of course, tracking changes in Saudi Arabia's real estate and analysing how this sector is managing to attract local and foreign investors. Well, recently, the Saudi Minister of Municipalities and Housing, Majid Al-Hogail, said that the capital, Riyadh, needs 130,000 houses a year to keep up with demand. Well, he made that comment to Al Arabiya's business channel during the launch of Cityscapes Global in London. Well, that event saw 100 international companies and investment funds managing projects with assets exceeding $4.4 trillion. Well, as the kingdom undergoes a rapid economic transformation, there is an immediate demand for quality, world-class housing to accommodate the talent influx. Well, speaking on the sidelines of that event in London, the Saudi minister told Al Arabiya senior reporter Karina Kamel about sustainability growing the sector, and while successfully scaling foreign investor appetite at the same time. Let's listen in.
I would like to start by asking you about Vision 2030 and to what extent is the real estate sector in Saudi Arabia having an impact or contributing to the goals of diversifying the economy and indeed achieving the social transformation that is part of Vision 2030?
Real estate, all of us knows it's a foundation for every project. If you look to the diversity of the Vision 2030, you can see many sectors, tourism, for example, housing, for example, industrial, sports, etc. So the ecosystem of Saudi Arabia when it comes to real estate was one of the focus to ensure that the quality of deploy or engaging or even developing, it is within the international best standard, and that's what we have done during Vision 2030 and what we have reached until now.
Growth has been phenomenal in the real estate sector, both in terms of the actual activity but also prices. What do you think is fueling this momentum we're seeing in growth in the sector?
It's the Vision 2030, and the demand is not locally, but it's also globally, also the ecosystem of investment in Saudi Arabia and the regulation that has been developed a few years ago made Saudi one of the easy doing business to be ranked one of the top. Plus that the concentrate or the focus for all government, like e-government, like the technology and the innovation in Saudi Arabia, that's helped to fuel all that. But don't forget, Saudi, it's a young population, and that's made and young and adaptation of the international standards made the offering be diversified as well as the demand itself.
Exactly, and I wanted to ask you about that, because how do you make sure that this kind of growth that you're seeing is indeed sustainable in the longer term?
First is when it comes to the development, we ensure that the development quality, it's at very following the sustainabilities and the standards itself. When it comes to the mortgage, we have a responsible lending that makes sure that people, when they borrow, to do that. We have invested a lot on supply-demand control to make sure always that this does not, we don't want to oversupply, but also we don't want to be under to do that. So how we always looking to the ecosystem of supply-demand. Also, we are bringing our cities to be more for a human, for the people who live in the city, not the cars itself. So we are revisiting the accessibility, for example, within 800 meters to the public space, etc. This kind of quality ensure the sustainability of the development and ensure that this will last longer, inshallah.
And just a final question, can you give us a sense, we're here in London, you're meeting with lots of investors, can you give us a sense, how do you gauge foreign investor appetite for investing in this sector in Saudi Arabia?
I think Saudi reputation globally now, when you go everywhere in any event or any in the world, Saudi becomes one of the countries that most of people look to it. Not necessarily invest, but at least look to it and become one of the consideration. I think a lot of our effort from our colleagues in the investment ministry, a lot of engagement that made the appetite is quite high. We are very happy and with what we see as year after year from the engagement that we see and from discussing. Now we see a lot of international companies in Saudi Arabia, and that gives us more confidence to really continue this dialogue with the international investors.
Okay, and that was the Saudi Housing and Municipalities Minister Majid Al-Hogail speaking to Al Arabiya there. Let's cross now to Ali Raza, who is the strategic advisor at the Saudi Arabia holding company, who joins us this week from Perth. Ali, great to have you with us. You were listening in there. What stood out as far as you were concerned?
Well, Tom, there's two things there, I think. First, we have spoken about on a number of occasions the diversity, depth and interconnectedness of the various components within the Vision 2030 program. And the Housing Sector Development Program is one of the 11 programs of Vision 2030. And what His Excellency, the Minister, just shared in the interview was, when he was asked what is driving all of this growth, he spoke about the diversity of Vision 2030, and I think this is the critical point. And a second piece I'll attach there is his comments at the end about the fact that wherever you go in the world now, Saudi Arabia is taking center stage as a destination for investment, tourism, industry. There's a lot of excitement around the region, and the driving force, I think, behind this sector is the breadth of initiatives that are underway to develop industry, to attract foreign investors, to provide elevated living standards, to provide investment opportunities, to ease the regulatory burden. So the culmination of all these initiatives, I think, that have been underway for the last few years are now starting to come to fruition, and real estate, like many others, is another sector that's benefiting from it.
And just tell us about the real estate sector and put it into context for us. How significant is it as a percentage of GDP for the kingdom?
Well, Tom, it's nearly 10% of GDP, and the GDP is also growing rapidly. We have to remember that. So it's a sizable sum, and arguably the second largest sector of the kingdom. But even more importantly, perhaps, is the fact that real estate is not just about homes or buildings. Real estate is underpinned by such an enormous base of mid-market enterprises and companies, trades businesses, services businesses that are often the backbone of an economy. So the first degree consequence is a direct contribution to GDP, and we expect that this number will rise substantially by 2030 and beyond. And the second degree consequences, and the very critical, important consequences here, I think, are the industries that the real estate sector is supporting. As part of the housing sector development program, one of the targets was to increase home ownership to north of 70% among Saudis. Now, it was around 50% in 2016. As of last year, it's now upwards of 64%. So we've already seen rapid growth in the area. Now, when you consider the population of the country, a 10 to 20% increase in home ownership and all the industries it supports, as I said, from trades, services to the construction enterprises to the real estate agencies that are involved, the developers, financial firms, this is a sizable chunk. This is a huge economic impact to the baseline on which we started just less than 10 years ago.
Okay, so we're talking about a really significant sector here. Ali, stay with us. We'll be back with you for some more analysis in just a moment. Well, let's stay with our main story. And one real estate firm that has a storied presence in the kingdom is Dar Al Arkan. Well, based in Riyadh since 1994. It's currently among the largest developers by market value in the kingdom. Well, after listing on the Saudi Stock Exchange in 2007, its ambitions soared outside the kingdom with the establishment of DarGlobal. DarGlobal was founded in 2017 as the international arm of the Saudi giant. And DarGlobal now boasts partnerships with some major brands, including the Trump Organization. Well, let's find out more now. We can speak to Ziad El Chaar, who is the CEO of the real estate developer DarGlobal, which started in Saudi Arabia and which was the first Saudi company to succeed in listing on the primary market in the UK. Mr. El Chaar, thank you very much for coming to see us here at Al Arabiya.
Thank you.
As things stand right now, you've got 2.8 billion Saudi riyals worth of projects in Saudi Arabia. Amongst them, there's the Trump Tower in Jeddah, two other collaborations with the Trump brand in Riyadh. Before we talk about all of that, could you just start by telling us a little bit about how DarGlobal has grown into what it is today?
Of course. So our parent company is the well-known Saudi company called Dar Al Arkan, listed on Tadawul since 2008. So we've set out in approximately after the pandemic to start a global arm to develop real estate projects in international cities. So these are cities that have demand from at least 40 to 50 nationalities. So we started in the neighboring cities. We went to Dubai, we went to Ras Al Khaimah, we went to Muscat, we went to Doha, and then we went after European ventures. We went to London, we went to the south of Spain, 4 cities in the south of Spain, and we started looking at other opportunities. And thank you for mentioning, we were the first Saudi company to be able to list on the primary market in London in February 2023. And this gave more independence to DarGlobal and gave us more scope to do more collaborations globally.
And yet, you've got this you are an international entity, and you've got at least, as I mentioned, a couple of projects planned in Saudi Arabia. So you seem to have done a bit of a U-turn and gone back to where you started.
So our specialty is luxury real estate in international cities. And then last year in March, Saudi announced the opening up of the market for international investors, which was news to everybody. And at the same time, the Saudi government has been investing heavily in the last 6 or 7 years on promoting Saudi as a destination for investment, as a destination for tourism, as a destination for living. So when this law came out last March, we were very much motivated to take our business model of going after international customers to enter a foreign market, and at the same time to take our luxury offering into Saudi.
Okay, what is it about the Saudi market that makes it an attractive place for real estate investors?
You see, this is where it gets very interesting, because people see Saudi as like a market that is new in attracting foreigners, behind markets that started doing that, like Dubai, Abu Dhabi, or Doha, or Muscat, or even Manama. However, we need to recognize the size of the market of the Saudi, the size of the economy of Saudi, the size of the local population of Saudi, the size of the expats in Saudi. And when you look at that, first Saudi needed to take care of its own. And this is why you have today some of the best achievement in home ownership in Saudi towards Saudi locals. In 2023, this percentage has reached 63%, up from 47% in 2016, which would make it among G20 nations one of the best growth in home ownership. So the first focus in Saudi was home ownership for Saudi nationals, which has been achieved. So after doing that, now you go after touristic destinations where you would motivate foreigners and locals to take second homes or vacation homes. And you go after investments by expats where people would see that this Saudi market is heavily growing. And at the same time, it's the destination for most of the global activities these days. And they see a major investment from the government in new cities, infrastructure, major projects to make life in the kingdom for locals and expats at the global standards.
Okay, and everything you've said, it sounds like it's very much chiming with Vision 2030, which we talk about a lot on this program. So it's very much in keeping with with what's planned for the kingdom and how it's going to unfold in the next 5 years?
This is all part of the Vision 2030. This is where it started. Because when you look at the structure of the real estate market in Saudi, it was historically a market that is targeting social housing market, middle class housing. That was mainly done by a lot of developers. Then the luxury market was mainly a self-built market. People who were well off or high net worth used to go buy a land to build their project. And the expat market was inexistent because there was no law for that. Come Vision 2030, you've tackled the social housing and the middle class housing by providing incentives to increase the home ownership. And then the launch of so many iconic master communities and mega projects in many cities in Saudi that tackle the demand for luxury housing and second homes and vacation homes. And then you put up a law for home ownership and a long-term visa for non-Saudis. So this all came in the last 6 or 7 years.
Right, so the whole sector's had a huge change, and as you say, home ownership has skyrocketed. But I expect there are still some challenges, aren't there, for the real estate sector? What might they be?
You see, anytime you would see a booming market and a fast-growing market, we will always have challenges in construction. And the first challenge is availability of contractors, quality of contractors, because there's a lot of competition for so many projects across the kingdom, especially after committing to the Expo 2030 and the World Cup 2034 and the Asian Games and the Winter Asian Games, among others. So definitely we're all having challenges in the selection of contractors, availability of contractors, and pricing of contractors.
Okay, and obviously massive projects like NEOM, the giga projects that we talk about a lot on this channel, must have raised the profile enormously of Saudi Arabia. Are you seeing that's influencing, let's say, investor interest in the kingdom? Are you seeing that having a direct impact?
You see, I travel a lot for my business because I go to many international cities to look at opportunities or to visit our offices. So when I visit our office in New York, and then you go to Times Square and you see a sign, Invest Saudi, or you see a sign for one of the projects in Saudi, that was a first for so many people. But then this is where the government played aggressively on not just promoting and executing, so that when people come and visit Saudi, they see that this promotion is being actually built. And then to top it off, you go and take those massive global activities to be hosted in Saudi Arabia. And this should be now to the benefit of, I have to say, real estate developers, because we should be promoting Invest Saudi also, because you'll have a lot of people who have a raised interest to come and invest at the start of the market. Investors know how important is it to get into the market at the beginning. And this is what we have a duty to showcase, because yes, at the end of the day, I have a duty to my shareholders to make a profit in the company, but also being part of the FDI of the country you work in gives you a lot of satisfaction.
What's most attractive for a real estate investor in Saudi right now? Is it on the residential side, commercial, industrial? Where are they going to see the best returns?
We'll have to follow the guidelines of the law that were issued last March, where you have mainly a focus on residential to get the long-term visa. And here also Saudi played it very intelligently, because they said for expats, the ticket has to be 4 million riyals and higher. Thereby, they do not affect the units designed for social housing and middle class income to compete with the expats who are coming to invest in the country. And then eventually you'd have problems like some of the countries where you had problems with the golden visas, is that the locals could not find properties to buy. So they've done this very clear separation through putting this 4 million riyals threshold.
Okay. I want to talk to you a little bit about the Trump collaboration. First of all, how did your collaboration with the Trump organization come about in the first place?
You see, personally, my first collaboration with the organization was in one of my earlier jobs in 2012, when I convinced the Trump organization to come and work with a company in Dubai to build what is today the Trump International Golf Club Dubai. And I saw the power of the brand. I saw the attention to design. I saw the support they will give you in promoting projects and in managing of these projects. This was well beyond politics and even 4 years before that. So obviously when I saw opportunities that we're currently doing in DarGlobal, I went back to Eric Trump, the executive vice president of the organization, said, listen, we have a very attractive project in Muscat I would like to show you, which is a golf course and a hotel and a private club and a residential development. And this is where our collaboration started. And we've announced the Oman project way even before even the current sitting president announced he was going to run. Because again, we believe in the power of this brand, especially in golf.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you specifically in Saudi Arabia, what's appealing about the brand, and what's been the rationale behind the various joint projects? Because there's the Trump Tower in Jeddah, 2 projects as yet unannounced in Riyadh. I hope you'll tell us first when they are announced, and of course other projects around the region. So just tell us the answer to that question. What is the appeal of the Trump brand in Saudi?
You see, the luxury market is evolving in Saudi, and there is more demand for luxury from the locals and from the international market. And if you want to build on Jeddah in front of the sea, one of the best towers, really you don't have a lot of options in terms of co-branding. So Trump is a great option to brand a tower on the Corniche in Jeddah, and to build within that tower also one of the first private clubs branded by Trump, because there's also a big demand in the city of Jeddah for private clubs. And then we would like so much to build with the Trump organization in Saudi a world-class golf course, because this is one of the big specialties of the organization, and we're hoping to find that opportunity soon in Riyadh.
Okay, and how are you seeing the sales of units in the Trump Tower in Jeddah progressing? What's been the trend?
Very successful. You know that we're a publicly listed company, so I'm limited by what I can say, but I can tell you it's been very successful because we presented to the market first what the market wants, with a great brand, with a great design.
Okay, so we talked a bit about Riyadh, we talked a bit about Jeddah. Are there other regions of Saudi Arabia that could hold some appeal for you, or is that not yet something you're exploring?
You see, we are exploring all the cities of Saudi, because you have definitely a great appeal in Riyadh, you have a great appeal in Jeddah. Then you have the 2 most interesting upcoming regulation regarding the holy sites of Mecca and Medina. Then you have all the developments on the Red Sea. The Red Sea is one of the best locations in the world, because any development on the Red Sea can be used for 12 months. Because of the weather on the Red Sea. So definitely we're looking at most of the locations where the government is putting a lot of efforts in Saudi.
Okay, and can you sum up for us any sort of key regulatory changes that are affecting the Saudi market, just so that we can inform our viewers?
You see, from a real estate perspective, the most aggressive was the opening up of the market. But also, Saudi is motivating a lot of foreign companies to come and open in Saudi, whereby now we're getting a lot of foreign contractors that are coming to Saudi, which is also helping the market, because we need more contractors. And at the same time, the expansion of the travel routes is very important, because it's very hard to sell to somebody if they cannot get a connection that is direct to that city. So expanding the airports, expanding the airlines will help a lot the real estate market.
Right, I mean, Saudi very much on the map, and we've been speaking to the airlines, we've been speaking to lots of people who are part of this journey. What's your outlook for the sector for Saudi Arabia over the next 10 years or so?
You see, there are so many cities that started before Saudi, but once Saudi started, everybody took attention, because it's a G20 market. The market has a lot of weight on its own locally, plus adding to that the international appeal, you have today within Saudi at least 10 cities that can be developed. And let me just say that eventually Saudi will anchor the GCC, because the GCC today is a $2 trillion economy. It's close to Italy. In Italy, as a foreign investor or as a visitor, you have at least 10 destinations to go. And you have the same thing in the GCC. And more, the GCC is becoming interconnected with roads, trains, the same tourist visa that is being discussed. And people need to look at this market, that Saudi is the anchor and the GCC is a very attractive destination eventually for tourism and expat living.
And just lastly, before we wrap up, who are you targeting in Saudi Arabia? I mean, just give us the profile of the typical buyer of one of your properties.
Definitely the local buyer is the local buyer who wants a luxurious offering. The international buyer, we are targeting the people who would have the first in advantage, the innovators. So we're targeting obviously markets in Asia like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. We're targeting the UK. We're targeting some markets in Eastern Europe. We're targeting the Levant because they have a lot of roots in the GCC. They've been here for so many years. But I can tell you, just for the first 2 projects that we've launched in Saudi since last November, we have approximately 40 nationalities that invested with us.
Okay, well, we're going to have to leave it there because we're out of time. But it's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate your time. Ziad El Chaar, the CEO of the real estate developer DarGlobal. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm still here with Ali Raza, strategic advisor at the Saudi Arabia holding company. Ali, you were just listening in with me there. I mean, there have been some recent amendments, haven't there, to Saudi Arabia's residency laws, and we heard about them from the CEO of DarGlobal just there. I mean, what are the rules? Just make it clear to us with regards to non-Saudi nationals who want to invest in the real estate sector.
Yeah, so Saudi Arabia has taken enormous efforts to make investment in Saudi Arabia easier for investors around the world in real estate, but also many of the other sectors. So last year, Saudi Arabia introduced the premium residency program, and that was one of the big initiatives to drive foreign investor home ownership. Now, there are some stipulations that come with this, and His Excellency, as we heard from the Minister earlier on, there's a huge focus on supply and demand. So therefore, there are some stipulations that have made the conditions very favorable for foreign investors, but at the same time, conducive to the objectives of Saudi Arabia. Now, how is that reflected? One example is, so home ownership and property ownership is encouraged. And in fact, foreign investors are being provided with premium residencies for a lifetime if they invest north of around 4 million Saudi Riyal, or roughly $1 million US. Now, these investments there are some limitations around it, right? So true home ownership is encouraged, but purchasing for speculative purposes to protect the interests of the local industry and the local buyers, this is discouraged for the time being. And interesting, at the moment, as I sit in Australia, we have a bit of a challenge in this country where there's a lot of ownership of property which has been speculative, and it often results in inflated pricing, poor management of supply and demand, and then has a consequence to the local economy and the local population. So the regulations that are being set up now, I think, are in the interest of both the foreign investors and the local population, but it's certainly simplified the process and ability for foreign investors to own homes truly in Saudi Arabia.
Right, and just echoing what the minister said there, the Minister of Municipalities and Housing, Majid Al-Hogail, he was mentioning Vision 2030, and I just wanted to get your take on how you see Vision 2030 as having shaped the real estate sector as it stands right now in the kingdom. So,
Tom, Vision 2030, we've often discussed, is about industrial development, diversification from the oil economy, yes, all of the above, but it's also an initiative which is underway to better society, better the local society, to give people opportunity and a standard of living. So, one of the comments I made earlier was about the fact that there was a target to increase home ownership from 50% to over 70% by 2030, and that's now sitting at 64%. There's a number of programs that have been developed to ease access to financing and mortgages, to ease access to property purchases, like the ETMAM project. IJAR is a body that was set up to provide greater protections and management of property rentals, in particular, as an example, to prevent misconduct by landlords, to really soften the landscape from a regulatory perspective, but also facilitation perspective, in a way that is very supportive of investors, but also those looking to live in homes and own their dream homes. So Vision 2030, to this regard, I think is doing an incredible job for the betterment of society, for the opportunity for families to own homes, their dream homes, to encourage investment, to provide further access to financing, and really make this whole program a catalyst to this particular sector. And additionally, we've spoken a little bit about the local population and the standard of living. We've spoken about foreign investors. Nearly half of all jobs created last year were in Riyadh, and the regional headquarters program, which has seen, I believe, north of around 600 enterprises set up their RHQs in region, and particularly in Riyadh, has been a huge proponent to this, right? The employment rate is growing rapidly. Foreign investors are coming in as a result of foreign or expats are coming in to work, live, build in Saudi Arabia. So it really goes back to the first point we spoke about today. It's the interconnectedness of the various programs within Vision 2030, the diversity and breadth of the overall strategy that's really serving the sector in an incredible way. And I think it will continue to do so much further beyond 2030.
And just lastly, before we move on to our next story, Ali, I mean, listening in to what Ziad El Chaar, the CEO of DarGlobal, was just saying there, I mean, it certainly sounds like the Trump brand is an extremely powerful brand in Saudi Arabia. It sounds as though we're going to be seeing it a lot more on the skylines, not just in Saudi, but right across the region.
Tom, the Trump brand has been synonymous with a lot of discussions, especially in the last few months, and you and I have had many of these. There's certainly an affinity to the Trump brand in the kingdom from what we can see. If recent events are any indication, there's clearly an intention to maintain strong relationships and ties there. I would say, in my opinion, I think Trump is quite fond of the region himself. And I don't see any reason we won't see more and more of the brand on the skyline.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for that, Ali. Stay with us. We'll be back with you in just a moment. And finally, our last story of the day is about the Riyadh Metro, which launched in December last year. And it's brought some pretty welcome respite to the traffic situation in the Saudi capital. Well, since it began operations, the metro system, which can carry 3.6 million passengers a day, has taken thousands of cars off the road. Well, in case you didn't know, there are 6 metro lines connecting 85 stations across 176 kilometres. Let's listen now to how it's helped some Riyadh residents with their day-to-day travel.
فعلا سعيد جدا إنه هذا المشروع الحمد لله ظهر إلى النور.
I am really very happy that this project has finally come to light, and we can now use it in a city crowded with cars and traffic in a large and great city like Riyadh. This project has enhanced the city's beauty even more. Although billions were spent to bring this project to life, I truly feel today that this great achievement and the billions spent were worthy for this project.
Honestly, I live in the far south of Riyadh and my work is in the far north of Riyadh. This development has positively impacted my lifestyle since the commute now took me less than 50 minutes, whereas it usually takes about an hour and a half. Besides, the comfort during the journey. There's no disturbance or anything to make my day start with negativity like traffic. and its hassles.
Okay, so it sounds like the Riyadh Metro has made a real difference to the quality of life for people who live there. Ali Raza, let me bring you back into the conversation. Riyadh's new metro, as we were saying, opened in December. It's one of a lot of different infrastructure initiatives that fall under Vision 2030. I mean, what's your impression of the sort of impact it's had on Riyadh's economy?
Look, one of many incredible infrastructure projects. We all like to spend a little bit of time in the car on a drive, but there is a limit to that. And as the city starts to flourish, increasingly day by day, we see an influx of not only foreign professionals, expats, but a growing local population, which is a very young population, an increase in employment, more industry and people moving on the road. This was a necessity, number one. But it is quite a fantastic infrastructure project. The piece of development is incredible. It's seamless, it's smooth, it's certainly having a positive impact on the road traffic. It's beautifully designed, by the way, just an incredible design. And I think this is one of the very interesting things about all the projects taking place. They're all brand new. We're seeing the foundations being laid right in front of our eyes, and the Riyadh Metro is yet another example of that. So all in all, I think a very positive impact to the local economy, and one that will pay dividends both economically but also socially for many generations to come.
Yeah, compared to a lot of other world capitals, it's very reasonably priced. I've just checked, it's 4 riyals, that's $1 for a one-day pass. It's 140 riyals for a month-long pass. So it's affordable. And one of the other consequences we're being told is that it's given people a chance to mingle, because otherwise, if you're in your car, you're obviously not mingling with people, but they're on the metro, and we saw a couple of regular travellers. You've got white-collar workers, you've got labourers. I mean, it's a whole cross-section of society, isn't it, that's using this transport?
Yes, absolutely. Look, it's, again, I think everyone was really holding out for this infrastructure to go live. Again, time spent on the road is great, but it's isolating. You're giving up quality time on the road. This is fostering a lot of social relationships, in my opinion. I think it's giving people an opportunity to mingle. And I often say to people around the world who have not had the opportunity to come to Riyadh and they're thinking about it, one of the most exciting things about being in Riyadh is there's an energy, there's a passion, there's ambition. You speak to people and that energy is contagious, and an opportunity to be amongst more of that across all segments of society, I think is an incredible opportunity to see the society flourish even further.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Ali Raza, Strategic Advisor at the Saudi Arabia Holding Company. Thank you very much indeed, as ever, for your comments and analysis. Well, that's all we have time for. Thank you very much indeed for watching the Riyal Deal here on Arabiya English. We'll see you again next week. Look forward to that.